My name is Clara. I'm 69 years old, and I was born and raised in a quiet little town in southern Ohio. For most of my life, I've been a daughter, a mother, a teacher, and now a grandmother to 5 beautiful grandkids. But before I was any of those things, I was a little girl with a secret so heavy that it shaped everything that came after. Today, for the first time, I'm ready to share that secret. Not because it's easy, not because I've forgotten the pain, but because I know there are others out there, maybe even someone watching this, who's holding in something just as dark, just as heavy. And I want you to know you're not alone. You never were. Before I begin, I want to ask you something from the heart. Who is the one person in your life you'd protect no matter what? Who would you stand in front of, take the hit for, just to keep them safe? If someone comes to mind, I'd love it if you'd share their name in the comments. Also, if you're comfortable, tell me which state you're watching from. I've always found something comforting in knowing where people are listening from, like we're sitting across a kitchen table instead of through a screen. It helps me feel a little less alone in telling this story. And thank you. Thank you for supporting Grandparents' Tales, for giving people like me a space to be heard. What I'm about to share isn't easy. It's not pretty, but it's real. And I believe that sometimes telling the truth, finally, is what makes healing possible. I grew up in a small suburb just outside Dayton, Ohio. Back then, it felt like the kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. We had quiet streets, friendly neighbors, and yards filled with rose bushes and American flags. My dad, James, owned a tiny auto repair shop behind our house. He was the kind of man who always smelled like grease and coffee, and the neighborhood loved him. My mum, Elaine, was a seamstress who worked miracles with a needle and thread, sewing everything from wedding gowns to Sunday school dresses. They tried for years to have children, but after 3 miscarriages, the doctors said it was unlikely. So when I arrived healthy and red-faced, they treated me like I'd been sent from heaven. My mother used to call me her little blessing, and my father told everyone who walked into our house that I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. I believed it. I felt so loved, so treasured, like the center of their world. I had a bedroom painted soft yellow with hand-stitched curtains and a shelf full of dolls my mum made herself. My dad built me a wooden playhouse in the backyard, and every weekend he'd take me to the local diner for pancakes and hot chocolate. To anyone watching, we were the perfect family. We went to church every Sunday, waved at the mailman, and hosted barbecues in the summer. I remember thinking even as a little girl that my life felt like a movie. Sweet, simple, safe. But now, when I look back, I can see the cracks. They were small at first, easy to miss. Like how my dad would always want to brush my hair even when it didn't need brushing. Or how he'd hold me on his lap just a little longer than other dads seemed to do with their daughters. I didn't know any different, not really. He was my father. Fathers love their daughters. That's what I believed. And whenever I felt a flicker of discomfort, I brushed it off as me being silly or overthinking things. Still, some moments stuck with me, like the time I was 6 and he came into the bathroom while I was taking a bath. I remember freezing, clutching my little sponge to my chest. He laughed and said not to be shy, that there was nothing wrong with a father checking in on his girl. My mum wasn't home that night. She worked long hours picking up and delivering sewing orders to different parts of town. When she was gone, it was just me and him. I loved those nights once, but they started to feel different. Not scary, not yet. Just strange. He called me Angel Sweetheart sometimes, Princess. His voice was soft, almost too soft. At first I thought I liked it. What little girl wouldn't want to be adored? But slowly those words began to feel sticky, like honey that had gone sour. I didn't have the words for what I was feeling, only that sometimes after one of his long hugs or kisses on the top of my head that seemed too close to my cheek, I would run to my room and close the door without knowing why. I told myself I was tired. I told myself he just loved me a lot. Looking back, I can see what was happening. But when you're a child, especially an only child, you think your world is normal. You think love always comes wrapped in warmth. You don't realize that sometimes love can hide something darker underneath. Something that looks safe from the outside, but slowly begins to feel wrong. It happened on a Tuesday night in early February, just after my 8th birthday. Winter in Ohio was still biting cold, and the wind rattled our windows like it wanted to come in. Mum had gone to bed early after working a double shift, and I was curled up on the couch under a blanket watching cartoons. Dad came in from the garage, still wearing his heavy flannel jacket, smelling like gasoline and cold air. He sat beside me and opened his arms, smiling in that way he always did when he wanted a hug. I didn't hesitate. I loved my dad. I trusted him. I climbed into his lap like I'd done 100 times before. He pulled the blanket over us and wrapped his arms around me. At first it felt normal, just warm and safe. Then I felt his hand move slowly underneath the blanket. It slid lower than it ever had before. I froze, unsure if I had imagined it. I didn't say anything. I just sat there hoping he would stop. But he didn't. He kept talking softly, telling me how much he loved me, how special I was to him. Then came the words that would echo in my head for years. "This is our little secret angel. Your mum wouldn't understand. She'd get jealous." Something inside me shifted. It was like a part of my world tilted just a little off balance. I wanted to get up to leave, to run to my room, but I didn't know if I was allowed. It was my dad. If I said something, would I get in trouble? Would he get mad? I remember looking at the TV and pretending I was still watching, trying to focus on the cartoon voices, while everything else in me screamed to get away. When he finally let me go, I walked stiffly down the hallway, the blanket still clutched in my arms. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't change into pajamas. I just climbed into bed and pulled the covers up over my head. My heart was pounding. My stomach hurt. I didn't cry, though. I didn't know why, but I couldn't cry. The next morning, I acted like everything was normal. I ate my cereal, packed my backpack, and kissed my mum goodbye like always. At school, I laughed when the other girls told jokes. I answered questions in class. But inside, I was somewhere else. That night when Dad kissed me goodnight, I flinched. Just a little. He noticed. He tilted his head and gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Something wrong, Angel?" I shook my head. "No, nothing's wrong." From that day on, I learned how to lie without saying a word. I learned how to sit still when everything in me wanted to run. I learned how to pretend. He didn't stop after that night. It was just the beginning. But that first time marked me. Not just physically, but somewhere deeper in a place I didn't have words for yet. I started to feel shame without understanding it. Like I'd done something wrong, though I didn't know what. I became quiet in ways no one noticed at first. I didn't draw as much. I stopped asking to sleep over at friends' houses. I just stayed close to home because part of me believed that this was normal, that this was what love looked like if it came from your dad. I couldn't explain it then, but I started to carry something I couldn't put down, a weight in my chest that made everything feel slower, heavier. That moment, that one night on the couch, cracked something in me, and no matter how hard I tried to glue it back together, it was never quite the same again. By the time I was 9, I had become 2 different people. There was the girl everyone saw, the smiling, polite daughter who got good grades, helped her mother fold laundry, and always said thank you. And then there was the girl who only existed after dark, lying frozen in bed, while the man meant to protect her stole everything safe from her world. At school, I played the role perfectly. I raised my hand, laughed when I was supposed to, and hugged my friends when they needed it. But I was hollow inside, like someone had scooped out the best parts of me and left only a shell that knew the right things to say. I didn't even realize I was performing. I just thought that's how you survive. Every night after Mum went to sleep, I would listen for the sound of his footsteps. Sometimes he'd knock first. Sometimes he wouldn't. The door would creak open and I'd squeeze my eyes shut and pretend I was asleep, praying he'd leave. But he never did. I started to escape in my head. I'd imagine I was flying above the clouds, far from our little blue house on Lincoln Street. I pictured myself as a bird, a dolphin, a girl on a mountaintop somewhere with clean air and no shadows. My body would stay in that room still and small, while my mind floated far away. It was the only way I knew to survive what I couldn't fight. During the day, I would draw pictures of the places I visited in my imagination: beaches with no footprints, forests with glowing trees. I never drew people. I didn't want to bring anyone with me, not even him. Especially not him. I stopped wanting to play with the other kids at recess. They felt loud, unpredictable. I sat by myself near the fence, tracing lines in the dirt with a stick, building whole worlds I could disappear into. My teacher asked me once if I was okay. I told her I was just tired. It became my answer for everything. My mother noticed I was losing weight, that my eyes had lost their light. She asked if something was wrong, if I was getting bullied. I wanted to tell her. I really did. But when I looked at her face, so tired and trusting, I couldn't do it. I didn't want to be the one to break her. So I kept the secret. I locked it up so tight that even I started to forget who I had been before it started. The house that once felt like a safe place turned into a maze of fear. Every door held a memory I didn't want. Every night was another performance, another nightmare. And I started to wonder if I'd ever feel truly awake again. It was a Friday night in late August, the kind where the heat still lingered even after the sun went down. Mum had left to deliver a custom dress to a woman in the next town over one of her highest-paying clients. I was in my room pretending to study for a science test, but mostly just staring at the same paragraph for 20 minutes straight. That's when he knocked. His voice came through the door, soft and strange. He said he made me tea, chamomile, to help me relax. My father had never made tea in his life. That alone made my stomach tighten. I opened the door just a crack. He was standing there with a mug in his hands, smiling in that way that used to mean comfort. I told him I wasn't thirsty, but he said he really wanted me to try it. Just a sip, Angel. It'll help you sleep better. Something in me screamed not to take it, but saying no outright felt dangerous. I took the mug and thanked him, planning to pour it out as soon as he walked away. He didn't walk away. He kept standing there, waiting like he wanted to see me drink it. So I brought it to my lips and pretended to sip. Then I pulled it away and said it was too hot. "Blow on it," he said. I did. Another fake sip. Then one real one, just a small swallow, bitter and strange. My mouth tingled afterward. Finally he nodded and told me to rest. I closed the door and locked it, breathing hard. I dumped the rest of the tea out the window and wiped the mug clean with my sleeve. I didn't know what was in it, but something told me I didn't want to find out the hard way. 20 minutes later, my body started to change. My arms felt like sandbags. My legs wouldn't obey. My head spun even though I was sitting still. Panic bloomed fast. I tried to stand to move, but my limbs dragged like I was underwater. Then I heard it. The sound of the lock turning. He had a spare key. Of course he did. He stepped inside slowly like a hunter who had already cornered his prey. His voice was syrupy and awful. "Is the tea helping you relax?" I tried to speak. I really did. But my mouth barely worked. I slurred out a single word. Why he came closer. He knelt beside the bed and said something I'll never forget. "Tonight's special. Just you and me." I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear. But I was frozen conscious enough to feel everything powerless to stop any of it. The room swirled and shrank, and all I could do was pray for a miracle before it was too late. The door to my room was still halfway open when I heard another sound. It wasn't his voice this time. It was the front door creaking wide, then the click of heels on the hardwood. My mother's voice floated down the hallway, soft and familiar, calling his name. She said the client had cancelled. She came home early. She wasn't supposed to be back for another hour, maybe more. He froze at the foot of my bed. For the first time, I saw fear on his face, instead of that usual smug calm. He scrambled to straighten himself, mumbling something about a fever, about checking on me. My arms were limp. My eyes refused to focus. But I could see her shadow move down the hall, her footsteps growing louder. her purse hitting the wall as she turned the corner. Then she was there, standing in the doorway, her hand still on the knob, frozen like a statue. Her eyes scanned the room, landed on me, on him, on my half-naked body, and the empty tea mug on the nightstand. She didn't scream. Not at first. There was a silence so sharp, it felt like the whole world stopped breathing. Then, without warning, she dropped her purse and lunged. She didn't hesitate. Her fists landed on his chest, his face anywhere she could reach. She called him a monster, a coward, something unholy. He tried to explain, to block her hands, but she was too fast, too furious. He had never seen her like that. Neither had I. She wasn't my quiet, tired mum anymore. She was fired. She was thunder. She was everything he had never expected. He stumbled back, hitting the wall hard. She grabbed the sewing scissors from my desk. I saw them flash in the light as she raised them high. My heart slammed against my ribs, not from fear of him this time, but of what she might do next. Even drugged, I found the strength to speak. My voice cracked like dry wood. Mum, stop. He's not worth it. Something about those words snapped her back. She looked at me, really looked, then dropped the scissors. Her apron was already streaked with blood. He ran. Out the door into the night, gone before we could process what had just happened. My mum collapsed beside me, sobbing, her hands shaking as she held my face. She asked what he had done, how long it had gone on. She kept whispering that she was sorry. I tried to tell her everything. The tea, the years, the nights. My words were broken, scattered. But she understood. Her face changed again, from rage to devastation, from devastation to a kind of broken resolve I'd never seen before. That night, everything changed. The lie we had all lived under collapsed. The secret was out. And for the first time since I was 8 years old, I wasn't alone in it anymore. The police came that same night. My mother called them as soon as she tucked me into the back seat of the car and drove straight to the hospital. I don't remember much about that ride, just the smell of antiseptic on her hands, and the way she kept reaching back to touch my leg, like she needed to feel I was still there. At the hospital, nurses whispered, and doctors asked questions I didn't know how to answer. They took photos, swabs, and notes. A social worker sat beside me with a clipboard and soft eyes, but all I wanted was to go home. Not to that house, never again to that house. I just wanted a place that didn't smell like him. They arrested him the next morning. He was found hiding in a motel 3 towns over, and the moment I heard the words, "He's in custody," I felt something in my chest loosen. But it was only a flicker. There was still so much ahead of us, so many people to tell, so many things to relive. The trial took months to prepare. I had to meet with lawyers, psychologists, and more investigators than I could count. They told me I was brave. They told me my testimony would make a difference. I wanted to believe them, but mostly I felt tired. The day I testified, I sat in a courthouse that smelled like dust and old paper. I was 12 by then, just old enough to speak in court. When they called my name, my knees shook so badly I thought I might fall on the way to the stand. He was there. He looked smaller somehow, older. But when our eyes met, something inside me still curled in fear. I forced myself to speak anyway. I told the truth, even when it made me want to disappear. The courtroom was full of people I didn't know. Some looked horrified. Others looked skeptical. I felt like I was walking through fire, every sentence peeling away another layer of skin. But through it all, my mother sat in the front row, her hands folded tight, her eyes locked on mine. When the verdict came guilty on all counts, the room didn't erupt. There was no cheering, no relief, just silence. A long, deep silence, like a breath being held for years. I walked out of that courtroom with my mother's hand in mine, and a weight lifted, but not gone. Justice didn't erase what happened. It didn't fill the hole he left or take back the years he stole. But it gave me something I hadn't had before. A beginning. A place to step forward from. And that was enough to start healing. Not to forget, but to begin again. It took years before I could even think about love. Trust was something I had to rebuild, slowly, piece by piece, like stitching torn fabric by hand. I guarded my heart, afraid that anyone who got close might carry shadows I couldn't see. Then I met Mark. He wasn't flashy or loud. He was patient, kind, and steady in a way that felt new. He never rushed me, never pushed for more than I was ready to give. For the first time, I felt seen without being watched, held without being controlled. We dated for over a year before I told him about my past. I expected him to leave. Instead, he held my hand and said he was proud of the woman I'd become. That moment changed something deep inside me. I realized love could be safe. It could be healing. Becoming a teacher felt natural. I wanted to create the kind of classroom I never had, a place where kids felt protected, where they knew someone believed in them. Every child who walked through my door was a reminder of what I survived and why I chose to keep going. When I found out I was pregnant, I cried for hours. Not from fear, but from joy. It was a new beginning. A chance to raise a child in a world where love meant safety, not secrets, where bedtime stories didn't end in silence. The day my son was born, I held him close against my chest and whispered the words I'd been carrying in my heart since I was a child. I'll protect you, no matter what. Always. And in that moment, I knew the cycle had ended with me. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. Sharing these memories has been the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most freeing. For nearly 60 years, I lived with a silence that nearly swallowed me whole. I told myself that time would heal it, that if I just kept going, kept loving, kept building a good life, the past would stay buried. But some wounds don't close until they're seen, until they're spoken, until they're shared. I'm telling my story now for the little girl I was, and for every child out there who doesn't yet have the words to say what's happening to them. I want them to know that silence isn't their fault, that shame doesn't belong to them. I'm speaking to the adults too, the ones who never told, who still carry that heavy weight deep in their chest. You're not alone. You never were. And it's not too late to speak, to heal, to reclaim the voice that was taken from you. We don't all get justice in a courtroom, but we can find justice in truth, in living without fear, in telling the next generation that no one has the right to hurt them, and that real love never hides behind threats or secrets. If you've ever felt like you couldn't say it out loud, let this be your sign. You're not broken. You're not dirty. You're still here, and that means you're stronger than you know. Healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it starts with a whisper. So if my story touched something inside you, please don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe to Grandparents' Tales if you haven't yet, and share this with someone who needs it. And if you feel it in your heart, type Amen in the comments. Let the world see you. Let the world know you survived. And maybe, just maybe, someone else will find the courage to speak, because you did.